Lara Mendoza thought she had finally found the love of her life in Victor Solano, a charming man who promised her a future full of happiness and luxury. But behind his perfect smile lurked secrets that would shatter everything she believed. Each message, each promise, each late-night call pulled her deeper into a dangerous trap she couldn't see. As the money, trust, and her heart were stolen, piece by piece, Lara realized the man she loved might never exist at all. Now what started? As a dream romance is spiraling toward a shocking and deadly revelation, one that no one saw coming. Lara Mendoza had spent most of her life in pursuit of stability and success. At 40 years old, she had climbed the ranks of a reputable marketing firm in Manila, commanding respect from colleagues and earning admiration for her sharp mind and dedication. Yet, despite her professional achievements, her personal life was marked by an aching emptiness. Friends had married, started families, or moved abroad, leaving Lara with only occasional phone calls and fleeting social media updates to fill her evenings. She had grown accustomed to quiet dinners alone, walks in the park with her camera slung over her shoulder, nights filled with the hum of her apartment's air conditioner. But beneath the surface, Lara longed for connection, for someone who could see her not just as a competent professional, but as a woman with dreams, fears, and a heart-craving affection. It began innocently enough. She had signed up for a dating website, hesitant but curious, scrolling through profiles late at night with a mixture of hope and skepticism. Among the dozens of faces, one profile caught her eye: Victor Solano. Photograph radiated confidence, charm, and a subtle allure that made her pause. His smile seemed genuine, his posture relaxed, yet commanding. The profile description spoke of success, travel, and ambition. But what intrigued Lara the most was the sense of warmth and understanding that seemed to seep from his words. There was something magnetic about him, a combination of intelligence and sensitivity that drew her in. Their first message exchange was simple, almost mundane, but it sparked a connection that Lara had not felt in years. Victor was attentive, asking questions about her day, her passions, and her memories. He complimented her insights and made her feel seen, truly seen, in a way that had become foreign to her. Days turned into nights filled with long conversations where laughter flowed easily and silences felt comfortable rather than awkward. Lara found herself looking forward to each notification, each ping of her phone bringing a wave of anticipation and joy. Victor's charm was relentless, and soon he began sharing stories of his life, carefully curated to appear flawless yet relatable. He spoke of his childhood, travels across Asia and Europe, and his supposedly thriving business ventures. He painted a vivid picture of a life filled with experiences and opportunities, a life he promised to share with her. Lara was captivated, swept away by the fantasy of romance and companionship that she had so longed for. Every word, every smile, every carefully timed message felt like a thread weaving her closer to him. Her friends noticed the change almost immediately. Lara, who had been reserved and cautious about love, began to glow with excitement. Her laughter was more frequent, her eyes brighter, her steps lighter. Rico de la Cruz, her closest friend, couldn't help but worry. He saw the infatuation in her gaze, the way she clutched her phone with both hands, as if it contained her entire world. He voiced concerns about online relationships, about the risks of trusting someone so completely without ever meeting them. Lara, however, brushed off his warnings. She was too enthralled, too consumed by the feeling of finally being wanted, understood, and cherished. Even her cousin Marina, who had always been practical and skeptical, raised an eyebrow at Lara's newfound obsession. She questioned Victor's intentions, subtly probing for inconsistencies, but Lara defended him with unwavering faith. Doubt presented by friends was met with an explanation so convincing, so carefully woven, that it only reinforced her belief in him. Victor had mastered the art of persuasion, using charm and flattery to disarm suspicion. Lara felt she had finally found the perfect man, the one she had waited for silently, the one who could fill the void she had carried for decades. Little did she know the life she imagined with Victor was a carefully constructed illusion. The world he had shown her was not real, and the warmth she felt was a meticulously crafted trap. Each compliment, each declaration of love, each promise of a future together was designed to ensnare her heart and her trust. Lara Mendoza, once cautious and self-reliant, was stepping into a story that would unravel in ways she could never have predicted. She was about to fall into a web of deception so intricate that it would challenge everything she thought she knew about love, trust, and danger. At first, Victor's requests seemed harmless, even reasonable. He spoke of small emergencies, things that anyone in her position might understand: a sudden medical bill for a family member, a minor business problem that required immediate attention. Each time he reached out, his words were crafted with precision, his tone apologetic yet persuasive, always emphasizing that he would pay her back the moment he could. Lara, who had longed for someone to trust, felt honored that he confided in her. She didn't see the strings attached to his requests. She saw a man in need, someone vulnerable who relied on her care and generosity. Without hesitation, she began sending money, first small amounts, then gradually larger sums, each transfer reinforcing the bond she believed they shared. Rico, who had watched Lara become more absorbed with Victor, grew increasingly anxious. He noticed the red flags she seemed blind to, inconsistencies in Victor's stories, the way he evaded questions about meeting in person, and the subtle pressure to act quickly. He tried to intervene, warning Lara that online romance scams were widespread and often devastating. He reminded her that trust was precious and should not be given so freely to someone she had never met. But Lara, intoxicated by the illusion of love, dismissed his concerns. To her, Rico's caution seemed cynical, refusal to understand the connection she had with Victor. Even Marina, her sharp and perceptive cousin, grew suspicious. She questioned Victor's motives, probing into his supposed background in business ventures. She searched for verification, trying to find any evidence that Victor was who he claimed to be. But each time she uncovered something questionable, Lara defended him, explaining away every discrepancy with confidence. Victor had perfected the art of manipulation, weaving lies with charm, creating a narrative so compelling that even the most skeptical appeared gullible in comparison. As weeks turned into months, the financial demands escalated. Victor began speaking of life-changing opportunities, investments that would secure their future together, and emergencies that required immediate funds. He painted a vivid picture of a shared life full of luxury, travel, and security, one that Lara could almost touch and taste. Every message, every call, every photograph he sent reinforced the fantasy of a perfect life waiting for her. Lara, who had spent years dreaming of love, poured more money, more trust, and more of herself into the illusion. She felt a growing sense of purpose, a belief that she was helping someone she loved, someone who needed her. But the cracks were beginning to show. Friends and family started noticing changes in Lara that went beyond her financial vulnerability. She was constantly anxious, checking her phone obsessively, responding immediately to messages, and becoming irritable when questioned about Victor. Her laughter, once genuine, now carried an undertone of tension, as if she was always anticipating some unseen complication. Rico and Marina tried to intervene, attempting gentle conversations about her safety, about the possibility that Victor might not be who he claimed. Each attempt was met with a mixture of defiance and heartbreak, Lara insisting she knew him, trusted him, and loved him. Unbeknownst to Lara, Victor had been orchestrating the perfect trap from the start. Every word he spoke, every image he sent, every promise he made was part of a meticulously crafted plan to exploit her emotions and her resources. He was a master manipulator, identifying her loneliness, her desire for companionship, and her willingness to help as tools to achieve his own gain. With every transfer of money, he tightened his grip, making it harder for her to step back, harder for her to see the reality behind the carefully constructed illusion. The tension grew unbearable, a constant undercurrent beneath the excitement she felt whenever Victor messaged her. Lara began to notice fleeting doubts, small moments of unease, but she dismissed them quickly. She could not accept that the man she had imagined as her future was deceiving her. Her heart demanded belief, and belief for the moment. overpowered reason, and yet the stage was being set for something far darker. The trust she had placed in Victor, the money she had sent, and the emotional energy she had invested would soon collide with reality in ways she could never anticipate. The illusion of love, once so intoxicating, was about to unravel, revealing not just heartbreak, but danger. Lara Mendoza was on the brink of a revelation that would change her life forever. One that would test her resilience, her courage, and ultimately her thirst for justice. It happened suddenly, without warning, as if Victor Solano had vanished into thin air. One morning, Lara Mendoza woke up to find her messages unanswered, her video calls ignored, and her emails met with silence. The screen that once lit up her nights with warmth and excitement now felt like a cold, empty void. At first, she tried to convince herself it was a temporary glitch, perhaps a busy schedule or an unexpected problem. But as hours turned into days and days stretched into a week, the truth became impossible to deny. Victor was gone. The panic set in immediately. Lara scrolled through every platform they had used to communicate, searching for traces of him. Any sign that he might return or explain his sudden disappearance? There were none. The accounts were deactivated, the messages erased, and the promises that had once seemed so real now felt like a cruel joke. Her heart raced, a mixture of fear, disbelief, and a growing sense of betrayal. She had given him so much, not just money, but her trust, her hope, her belief in a future they had never truly shared. And now, all of it seemed to have been stolen in a calculated instant. Rico was the first to notice the change in her demeanor. He had warned her about online scams, had tried to prepare her for the possibility that Victor was not who he claimed to be. But seeing Lara now, frantic and shaken, filled him with a mixture of anger and helplessness. He insisted she contact the authorities, reach out to her bank, and try to trace any transactions she had made. Lara agreed, though the idea of involving the police brought a sense of shame and humiliation. She had fallen for something so obvious in hindsight, and the weight of that realization pressed heavily on her chest. Detective Alonso Rivera was assigned to the case, a man known for his meticulous nature and sharp instincts. From the beginning, he warned Lara that cases like hers were complex, often involving international scams, false identities, and networks that operated in the shadows of the internet. Every lead seemed to hit a dead end, accounts with false names, addresses that didn't exist, phone numbers that traced back to nowhere. Each attempt to track Victor felt like chasing a ghost. Lara watched as the investigation slowly unfolded, feeling both desperate and determined. She realized that if justice was to be served, she might need to do more than just wait. Meanwhile, the financial reality of her situation began to sink in. The money she had sent to Victor, once considered small acts of kindness, had accumulated into an amount that could have covered years of her own expenses. The betrayal was more than emotional. It was tangible, a violation of her life's security. The thought that a man she had loved, or at least believed she loved, could deceive her so completely was almost unbearable. Sleep became difficult, and every knock on the door or unfamiliar phone number made her heart jump. She felt trapped in a nightmare with no clear escape, yet amid the fear, a spark of resolve began to take shape. Lara could feel it in the way her thoughts sharpened, in the way she began documenting every detail of her interactions with Victor. She reviewed old messages, traced emails, and cross-referenced information that Victor had casually shared over months. Each clue, no matter how small, became a thread she could follow, a piece of the puzzle that might one day lead to him. The victim she once felt she was began to transform into someone capable of fighting back, someone unwilling to let her life be defined by deception, even as the days passed. And the mystery of Victor's disappearance deepened. Lara knew that this was only the beginning. The man who had promised her love, safety, and a future had left a trail of lies, but he had also underestimated her. She refused to be paralyzed by grief or fear. Every unanswered message, every empty call, every vanished account became fuel for her determination. Somewhere, Victor was out there thinking he had won. But Lara Mendoza was already planning a path that would bring him face to face with the consequences of his betrayal, in ways he could never imagine. Her heartbreak had turned into a quiet fury, a simmering fire that would not be extinguished. The illusion of love had been shattered, but Lara was no longer helpless. With every passing day, she moved closer to uncovering the truth, inching toward a reckoning that would shake the very foundations of the man who had dared to deceive her. The stage was set for something far more dangerous than heartbreaker confrontation that would test her courage, her cunning, and ultimately, her will to reclaim the life that Victor had tried to destroy. Lara Mendoza realized that waiting for justice was no longer an option. Victor Solano had vanished, leaving behind not only financial devastation, but a wound deeper than money could ever explain. The betrayal had cut into her very sense of trust, and now anger and determination fueled her every thought. She knew that if she wanted answers and, perhaps revenge, she would have to act herself. The first step was information. Every message, every email, every photograph Victor had sent over the months was scrutinized, cataloged, and analyzed. No detail was too small, no word too trivial. She started tracing his digital footprint. Using online tools and discreet inquiries, Lara pieced together fragments of his identity. False names, inconsistent addresses, and misleading bank details had made him nearly impossible to track, but she was relentless. Her focus was absolute. She created spreadsheets of every bank transaction, every message timestamp, and every online interaction, looking for patterns, for cracks in the facade he had carefully constructed. Slowly, the illusion of Victor's invincibility began to crumble. The man who had seemed untouchable now had vulnerabilities, and Lara intended to find them. She devised a plan that was both risky and daring. Instead of alerting him that she knew his true identity, she would lure him back. She created a new online persona, complete with a fabricated life and story, designed to appear as the perfect unsuspecting target. Every detail was meticulously crafted. A new profile picture, a convincing biography, add a persona that exuded trustworthiness and vulnerability, the kind of bait a seasoned con artist could not resist. Lara's careful preparation was more than strategy. It was the work of someone who had transformed pain into precision. Days turned into weeks as she subtly reached out to Victor. Each interaction was carefully monitored, designed to coax him into revealing himself without alarming him. She planted breadcrumbs, bits of personal information, hints about potential investments, and carefully timed responses, all calculated to make him believe he had found an easy target. Lara had become both hunter and prey, navigating a dangerous game where one misstep could destroy her efforts or alert Victor to her true intentions. The tension was almost unbearable, but she could not stop. Every day brought her closer to the moment when the trap would finally close. Victor, unaware that Lara was the woman he had once deceived, began to engage with her new persona. His messages were calculated, his confidence returning as he sensed an opportunity. He bragged about his schemes, revealing just enough to confirm the suspicions Lara had harbored for months. Bank accounts, hidden locations, contacts, everything he disclosed became a weapon she could use. Lara meticulously documented every revelation, each new piece of information fueling her resolve. The man who had once controlled her life through deceit was now unwittingly handing her the tools to reclaim it. The process was exhausting and emotionally draining. Lara balanced her real life with her elaborate online operation, feeling the strain of constant vigilance. Yet the thrill of control, the sense that she was rewriting her story, was intoxicating. She had transformed from a victim into a strategist, a force to be reckoned with. Every time Victor praised himself, boasted of his cunning, or revealed another lie, Lara felt a surge of anticipation. She was getting closer, closer to the confrontation that would expose him completely and force him to face the consequences of his actions. And then, finally, the moment arrived. Victor arranged a meeting, believing he was about to claim another victim, another sum of money, another story of success. Lara prepared meticulously, knowing that the encounter could turn dangerous. She was armed not with weapons, but with evidence, intelligence, and the strength of someone who had endured betrayal and refused to be broken. The trap was set. The hunter had become the hunted, and the man who had once thought himself untouchable was about to learn the price of underestimating the woman he had deceived. Lara's heart raced as she approached the meeting place. Months of planning, research, and patience had led to this moment. She was no longer the woman who had blindly trusted Victor. She was someone transformed by betrayal, someone capable of facing danger head-on. Every step she took carried her closer to confrontation, closer to justice, and closer to the reckoning she had long imagined. The line between love and revenge had blurred, and Lara Mendoza was ready to turn the story of her heartbreak into one of empowerment, courage, and finally, deadly resolution. The day of the meeting arrived with a tension that seemed to press down on every step Lara Mendoza took. Months of planning, investigation, and painstaking preparation had led to this moment. Victor Solano, the man who had stolen her trust, her money, and her sense of safety, was about to walk into the trap she had meticulously set. Lara's heart pounded, not with fear, but with a cold, focused determination. She had transformed her pain into strategy, and now every detail of his deception was about to come to light. Victor arrived, confident as ever, unaware that the woman before him was the same Lara he had deceived. He believed he was stepping into an easy opportunity, yet everything about the situation had been orchestrated to reveal his lies. Lara watched him closely, noting his movements, his body language, the arrogance that had always been his shield. Every boast he made, every smirk, every calculated glance was captured, catalogued, and ready to be used as proof of his manipulations. He had thought himself untouchable, but the illusion of control was about to shatter as the conversation began. Lara revealed just enough to unsettle him, dropping hints of her knowledge without giving away her full plan. She referenced events, amounts, and messages that only the real Victor could have known. His initial reaction was subtle. A flicker of surprise crossed his face, quickly masked by charm and denial. He tried to regain composure, to manipulate, to charm, but the web he had spun so carefully was now ensnaring him instead. Each lie he told in an attempt to save face only confirmed the truth. Lara had gathered over months of relentless research. Lara's calm yet unwavering demeanor unnerved Victor. He had underestimated her, assuming that a woman who had once fallen for his schemes would remain passive. But this Lara was different, strong, intelligent, and prepared. Every word she spoke revealed the depth of his deception, exposing the trail of victims he had left behind. She presented evidence of his lies, his fake identities, and the financial transactions he had orchestrated. The documents, screenshots, and messages were irrefutable. Victor's confident facade began to crack, and panic started to creep into his eyes. The confrontation escalated quickly. Victor realized he had walked into a trap that he could not escape. The man who had controlled others through deceit now faced the consequences of his own actions. The power dynamic had shifted completely. Every tactic he had used to manipulate and dominate others failed against Lara's preparation and resolve. She had anticipated every move, every excuse, and every attempt to escape accountability. The tension in the air was palpable, the kind that makes bystanders invisible. Time slow, and every second feel like a heartbeat away from disaster. In the chaos of confrontation, a struggle ensued. Victor's desperation grew as he attempted to flee, to regain control, but Lara had anticipated this as well. She maneuvered the situation carefully, ensuring that no one else was harmed and that justice could be served. The confrontation ended with Victor's sudden and fatal fall, a shocking and tragic culmination of his reckless life. It was a death neither fully intended nor entirely predictable, yet it was the ultimate consequence of a path built on lies, manipulation, and exploitation. Lara stood in silence, the weight of what had just happened pressing down on her. Relief, sorrow, and a strange sense of closure mixed within her. The man who had brought chaos into her life was gone, but the story of his deception and her determination to confront it would resonate far beyond this single moment. Detective Alonso Rivera confirmed later that Victor's death was accidental. But the narrative of betrayal, investigation, and revenge had already been etched into reality. Lara had reclaimed her life, her dignity, and her power in the face of unimaginable deception. The story of Lara Mendoza became a cautionary tale, spreading through conversations, news reports, and online platforms. It served as a warning about the dangers of online romance, the seductive power of charm, and the devastating consequences of misplaced trust. But beyond warning, it was also a story of empowerment, a story of a woman who refused to remain a victim, who turned heartbreak into strategy, and who faced danger with courage and intelligence. Lara's journey reminded the world that betrayal can ignite strength, that deception can be met with determination, and that even in the darkest moments, justice can take shape in unexpected ways. In the end, Lara walked away stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever before. The heartbreak that had once defined her became a catalyst for transformation, and the lessons she learned would guide her for the rest of her life. The man who sought to destroy her had inadvertently shaped the woman who emerged victorious, proving that sometimes the most powerful revenge is survival, courage, and reclaiming the life that was nearly stolen.